Welcome back to PHCodal channel. Today we're diving into an absolutely essential explainer of a landmark case that every law student literally has to know, Minucher versus Scalzo.
If you're new here, we break down complex jurisprudence into clear, digestible visual notes. And this one, well, it's a fascinating 2003 Supreme Court case that sits right at the crossroads of criminal law, civil damages, and international relations. It's the kind of case that really tests the absolute limits of jurisdiction.
To give you exactly what you need for your recitations and bar review, we're structuring this explanation using the gold standard FIRR format. So we'll cover the facts, the issue, the ruling, and finally, the reason.
Let's kick things off with part 1, the facts, an undercover sting. Honestly, the facts here read way more like an international espionage thriller than your standard legal dispute. Our story starts in May 1986 with Khosrow Minucher. He was an Iranian refugee, but not just your average civilian. He was actually a former Labor attaché for Iran under the Shah's regime. He ends up becoming the target of a joint buy-bust operation involving Philippine narcotics agents and Arthur Scalzo, who was a special agent for the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration, or DEA. This whole clash of international figures eventually culminates in an alleged heroin seizure and Minucher's arrest.
Tracing the timeline over about 2 weeks, you can see Scalzo building a relationship with Minucher, bonding over things like buying caviar and Persian carpets. Scalzo was basically playing the role of an American buyer. So on May 27th, he drops off $24,000 for some carpets, gives him an extra $2,000 for visa assistance, and asks Minucher to step outside to meet a cousin. And suddenly, boom! Minucher is completely surrounded by armed men. He gets handcuffed right there in the middle of the street in his pajama pants, while his house is raided.
Fast forward a bit to January 1988, and the trial court actually acquits Minucher of all those drug charges. With the momentum shifted, Minucher turns right around in August and files a civil suit against Scalzo. He argued the entire operation was built on totally trumped-up charges. Plus, he claimed that during the chaos of the raid, a bunch of his cash, handmade carpets, and jewelry just mysteriously vanished from his safe. Scalzo's response to all this? He immediately files a motion to dismiss the lawsuit entirely.
Now there is a really stark contrast between the two legal strategies at play here. It's kind of wild. On one side, you have Minucher demanding millions in actual, moral, and exemplary damages for an illegal arrest and all that missing property. He wants personal accountability. On the flip side, Scalzo completely shields himself with international law. He claims absolute diplomatic immunity as an agent of the U.S. government, basically arguing he's untouchable by a Philippine civil suit.
That brings us to Section 2, the issue, claiming immunity.
So what does this all mean for the court? We have to ask the ultimate question. Under international law, was Arthur Scalzo truly entitled to either diplomatic or state immunity from suit for his actions during that buy-bust? This is the critical juncture where Philippine domestic law crashes right into international treaty obligations. Moving on to Section 3, the ruling. The Supreme Court decides. Okay, spoiler alert, the Supreme Court ultimately denied Minucher's petition. They ruled that Scalzo was indeed immune from suit in Philippine courts. His legal shield actually held up. But the specific type of immunity that protected him, well, that might actually surprise you.
Let's break down exactly why in Section 4. The reason? State immunity explained.
First, the court had to define what a diplomatic agent actually is. They noted that the Vienna Convention is super strict about this. Blanket diplomatic immunity from civil and criminal suits is reserved exclusively for a very specific class of people. We're talking heads of missions, ambassadors, envoys, and official diplomatic staff who are genuinely charged with representing their home state in political matters.
Because of that strict definition, the court ruled that Scalzo's initial defense of pure diplomatic immunity was a bust. Sure, he was listed as an assistant attaché at the U.S. Embassy, but come on, his actual day-to-day job was conducting surveillance and busting suspected drug dealers. He wasn't out there negotiating treaties, he was catching criminals. So since he wasn't performing duties of a political or diplomatic nature, he flat out did not qualify for diplomatic immunity. But wait, here is the absolute game changer, and it's a vital distinction. Even though Scalzo didn't have diplomatic immunity, he was protected by state immunity. Why? Because he was acting as an authorized foreign agent of the United States government. You see, state immunity attaches to the foreign state itself in its sovereign capacity, and by extension, that covers its agents when they're acting in an official capacity. This brings us to the bedrock principle of the whole decision. Suing an official representative for acts done in their official capacity is, for all intents and purposes, suing the foreign state itself, and doing that violates the sovereign equality of nations. The court quoted the classic maxim par in param non habet imperium, which basically means an equal has no power over an equal. The Republic of the Philippines literally cannot assert jurisdiction over the sovereign acts of the U.S. without its explicit consent.
To drive this home, the court emphasized a massive detail. Scalzo didn't just go rogue. He was acting strictly within his official directives from the DEA, and more importantly, the Philippine government actually gave its consent and imprimatur to his activities. Local law enforcement, the Philippine Narcotics Command, was right there actively cooperating during the buy-bust. Because of that local consent, his actions were squarely imputable to the U.S. state, fully cloaking him in state immunity.
So, if you're gearing up for recitations or prepping for the bar, here are your 3 absolutely crucial takeaways. 1. Diplomatic immunity is restrictively applied only to actual diplomatic agents. 2. State immunity protects foreign agents acting within their official directives. And 3. The host state's consent to the foreign agent's activities is completely indispensable. You gotta have that local consent to activate the immunity.
Before we wrap up this digest, I want to leave you with a really provocative thought to chew on. What happens if an undercover foreign agent steps entirely outside their authorized official mission and commits an independent wrong? Where does the protective shield of state immunity finally end? The court hinted that immunity holds up only as long as they act within their directives. But figuring out exactly where that line is drawn, well, that's something you definitely want to think about.
Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer. If you found this breakdown helpful, please like, comment, and subscribe for more deep dives into essential jurisprudence. Keep studying hard, and we'll see you in the next one.